Most people think leftovers are harmless. They put the container in the fridge, walk away, and tell themselves, I will just warm it up tomorrow. But the truth is, there is a huge difference between food that is simply cold and food that has traveled through the wrong temperatures at the wrong time in the wrong way. And that difference is not small. It is the difference between a meal that nourishes you and a meal that quietly gives harmful microbes a head start. The real story is not fear. The real story is control. Because when you understand what happens to certain foods after they are cooked, cooled, stored, and reheated, you stop guessing and start protecting yourself and your family. The warning is not that reheating is always dangerous. The warning is that some foods punish sloppy handling far more than others. And let me say something important right away. This is not a story about panic. It is not a story about superstition. It is not a story about pretending that every leftover is toxic. Most food can be reheated safely when it is cooled quickly, stored properly, and heated all the way through. USDA guidance says leftovers should be refrigerated within 2 hours and reheated to 165 degrees Fahrenheit, and the FDA gives the same basic message. Keep food out of the danger zone, chill it fast, and do not trust appearance alone. That is the foundation, but within that foundation there are 4 foods that deserve special respect. Not because they are evil, because they are vulnerable. The first one is rice. Rice is one of the most common foods in the world, and also one of the most misunderstood leftovers. People cook a big pot, leave it on the stove, or let it sit for hours after a meal, and then they assume the next day's fried rice or reheated rice is automatically safe because it was cooked already. But that is exactly where the danger hides. Bacillus cereus is a spore-forming bacterium that can survive cooking, and it is especially associated with rice and other cooked starches. FDA materials specifically mention boiled or fried rice among foods implicated in past outbreaks, and the broader food safety guidance is clear. If cooked rice is held too long at unsafe temperatures, spores can grow and toxins can form. Reheating may kill some bacteria, but it cannot always erase toxin that may already have formed. That is why rice is not a food to treat casually. Cook it, cool it quickly, store it cold, and reheat it thoroughly only once. Think about how rice behaves. It seems innocent, soft, simple, comforting, but its texture gives you no warning when it has become unsafe. It does not smell dramatic. It does not scream danger. It just sits there, quietly waiting for the conditions that help bacteria multiply. That is why rice is one of the great examples of why food safety is not about the look of food. It is about time and temperature. FDA and USDA both stress that you cannot rely on appearance or odor to judge safety. That matters because many people think, it looks fine, so it must be fine. With rice, that thinking can be expensive. The safer mindset is to get rice into shallow containers, cool it fast, refrigerate it promptly, and reheat it to a steaming hot internal temperature before eating. If it sat too long at room temperature, the safest choice is not bravery, it is disposal. The second food is potatoes, especially baked potatoes and potato dishes that were cooled the wrong way. Potatoes seem so ordinary that people rarely worry about them. But official public health guidance has warned for years that baked potatoes in aluminum foil can be linked to botulism risk if they are held improperly. CDC specifically says potatoes baked in foil should be kept hot enough until served or refrigerated cold with the foil loosened so air can get in. FDA also lists baked potatoes in aluminum foil among foods associated with botulism. The reason is not that potatoes are bad. The reason is that low-acid foods, when sealed and held under the wrong conditions, can create an environment where Clostridium botulinum can grow and produce toxin. That toxin is rare, but it is serious. This is one of those situations where a small mistake in storage can turn a normal meal into a real health threat. Potatoes also teach us something deeper. They remind us that a food can be wholesome and still be mishandled. A baked potato is not the enemy. A potato salad is not the enemy. The enemy is the pattern of ignoring heat, sealing in moisture, and leaving food in the wrong temperature range for too long. That is why foil matters. That is why cooling matters. That is why refrigeration matters. If a potato has been baked, wrapped, and then forgotten, the issue is not whether it was cooked. The issue is what happened after cooking. Once again, the science is less glamorous than the warning, but much more useful. Keep potatoes hot if you are serving them soon. If not, cool them quickly, loosen the foil, refrigerate them promptly, and reheat safely later. The method matters as much as the meal. The third food is eggs and egg dishes. Eggs are healthy, versatile, and powerful in the kitchen, but they are also a food that requires disciplined handling. The FDA says eggs and egg dishes, including quiches and soufflés, can be refrigerated for later serving, but they should be thoroughly reheated to 165 degrees Fahrenheit before serving. That is not a suggestion. That is the line between warm food and safe food. Eggs sit at the crossroads of convenience and caution because many people treat them like they are harmless once cooked. But egg-based dishes can support bacterial growth if they are left out too long or reheated unevenly. Microwave heating can be uneven, so the middle of an egg casserole may still be cooler than the edges. That is why food thermometers matter. It is why stirring, rotating, and allowing standing time matter. Safety is often built out of small habits, not big speeches. Now here is where many people get confused. They think eggs are dangerous because of the egg itself. That is not the right lesson. The lesson is that eggs are a protein-rich, moisture-rich food that rewards proper handling and punishes laziness. If you have a leftover omelet, frittata, breakfast casserole, or egg curry, the answer is not fear. The answer is structure. Get it into the refrigerator quickly. Do not let it sit on the counter while you answer messages, take a shower, and forget about it. When reheating, make sure the whole dish reaches 165 degrees Fahrenheit. If you are using a microwave, cover the dish, rotate it, and check multiple spots because microwaves can leave cold spots. That small bit of discipline can be the difference between a safe breakfast and a miserable day. The fourth food is pasta. Pasta gets overlooked because it seems so simple, so bland, so routine. But cooked pasta behaves a lot like rice when it comes to storage risk. It is a starch, and cooked starches are one of the foods that can become unsafe if they are cooled too slowly or left at room temperature for too long. FDA guidance on foodborne hazards repeatedly flags Bacillus cereus and other spore-forming bacteria in cooked, temperature-abused foods, and that is why pasta belongs on this list. It is especially important for large batches of pasta, pasta salad, mac and cheese, and pasta dishes that sit out during parties, buffets, school lunches, or takeout meals. A tray of pasta may seem harmless for hours, but bacteria do not respect your appetite. They only respect time and temperature. Pasta also creates a false sense of security because it is often mixed with sauce. People assume the sauce protects it. It does not. Sometimes the sauce only hides the problem. If a pasta dish has been sitting warm for too long, the safest assumption is not, "I can still save it." The safer assumption is, "What happened during storage?" That is the question most people skip, and it is the question that matters most. The reheating step comes last. The safety step begins much earlier. A dish that was held in the danger zone for too long can be unsafe even if it is heated later. That is why leftovers should be cooled in shallow containers, refrigerated promptly, and reheated thoroughly only when needed. Not multiple times, not loosely, not whenever it is convenient. At this point, I want to pull the message back from the edge and make it practical. The goal is not to stop eating leftovers. Leftovers are one of the best tools for saving time, saving money, and reducing food waste. The goal is to stop treating leftover food like it has an unlimited grace period. It does not. Food safety is built on a few simple principles: clean hands, clean surfaces, quick cooling, cold storage, and thorough reheating. The USDA says leftovers should be put in shallow containers so they cool quickly and then refrigerated at 40 degrees Fahrenheit or below within 2 hours. The FDA says the same idea in a different way. Refrigerate perishables within 2 hours and do not keep food in the danger zone. That is not complicated, and that is the beauty of it. The science gives you a clear framework, not a maze. And once you understand that framework, you start seeing the difference between safe reheating and careless reheating. Safe reheating is deliberate. It uses a thermometer, it covers the food so it heats evenly. It stirs or rotates it when needed. It checks the temperature in multiple places. It accepts that some foods need more patience than others. Careless reheating is the opposite. It is the quick blast, the guess, the good enough, the "it was hot for a second, so I think it is fine." Food safety does not reward guesswork, it rewards measurement. If you remember one number, remember 165 degrees Fahrenheit. USDA and FDA both use that temperature as the benchmark for reheating leftovers and leftovers for hot holding. That number is not magic, but it is meaningful. It is a practical barrier against common foodborne risks. Now let's talk about the bigger misunderstanding. People hear a title like "Never reheat these 4 foods again," and they imagine a blanket rule. But the truth is more precise. These foods are not forbidden. They are not cursed. They are foods that become risky when the cooling, storage, or reheating process is sloppy. That distinction matters because fear-based health advice often tells people to avoid entire food groups, when the real problem is process. Rice is not dangerous because it is rice. Potatoes are not dangerous because they are potatoes. Eggs are not dangerous because they are eggs. Pasta is not dangerous because it is pasta. The danger comes when spores, bacteria, or toxins are given time and warmth to do what they do best. So the lesson is not never eat leftovers. The lesson is never be casual with leftovers. This also means that the safest kitchen is not the fanciest kitchen. It is the most disciplined kitchen. You do not need a laboratory. You need a refrigerator that stays cold, shallow containers, a simple thermometer, and the habit of acting quickly after cooking. You need to remember that food cools from the outside in, so a huge pot of rice or pasta in a deep container stays warm in the center longer than you think. You need to remember that covering food in the microwave helps it heat more evenly. You need to remember that hot foods should stay hot, cold foods should stay cold, and food that is sitting somewhere in the middle is where the trouble begins. Those are simple rules, but simple does not mean unimportant. It means usable. It means the kind of advice that actually changes outcomes. There is also a lesson here about trust. We tend to trust food that feels familiar. We trust the smell of yesterday's dinner. We trust the memory of having eaten it before. We trust our own experience. I have done this before, and nothing happened. But food safety does not care about how many times you got lucky. It only takes one bad cycle, one warm kitchen, one forgotten container, one sealed foil potato left too long, one rice dish cooled too slowly, one pasta tray left out at a party, one egg casserole reheated unevenly. That is all it takes. And that is why the healthiest mindset is not fear. It is respect. Respect the food, respect the timing, respect the temperature. The people who do that consistently are the people who avoid the avoidable problems. If you are listening to this and thinking, so what should I do tonight? The answer is straightforward. Put leftovers into shallow containers as soon as they are cool enough to handle. Get them into the refrigerator within 2 hours, sooner if the room is warm. Reheat them only when you are ready to eat them, not again and again through the day. Make sure the internal temperature reaches 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Stir or rotate in the microwave. Bring sauces, soups, and gravies to a boil when appropriate. For potatoes baked in foil, loosen the foil before refrigerating if you are not serving them hot right away. For rice, do not let it sit around. For eggs, heat them through completely. For pasta, do not assume that sauce alone makes it safe. These are small steps. But small steps, repeated every day, are what protect health quietly and reliably. And I want to end with this thought. Good food should make life easier, not riskier. Leftovers are not a problem to be feared. They are a resource to be managed wisely. The body does not need hype. It needs protection. It needs rhythm. It needs habits that reduce unnecessary exposure to pathogens and toxins. You do not need to throw away your leftovers and live in panic. You do need to handle them with intelligence, because health is often not built in the dramatic moment. It is built in the ordinary moment when you decide whether to leave that rice on the counter, whether to put that potato in the fridge, whether to reheat that egg dish carefully, whether to trust that pasta tray that sat out too long. In those moments, science gives you an answer. Not a scary answer, a practical one. And practical answers are the ones that save people the most. So remember this. Most leftovers are fine when handled the right way, but rice, potatoes, eggs, and pasta deserve extra caution because time, temperature, and storage can turn a normal meal into a hidden risk. The fix is not complicated. Chill fast, store cold, reheat to 165 degrees Fahrenheit, heat evenly, do not guess, do not wait, do not assume, That is how you protect your kitchen, your family, and your health.